WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It is 6 p.m. in Dakar and we're good to go 7 p.m. in Lagos. Good evening and welcome to Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and worldwide at WADR.org. Let's get into the headlines. AES block summons Nigeria's charged affairs over unfair remarks by President Bola Tinubu, linking worsening security crisis to the Sahel. President Mahama of Ghana carries out first cabinet reshuffle, appoints a defense minister. Nigeria's Anti-Corruption Commission recommends sanctions against Adeyemi for operating a fake government agency.
Mr. Adeyemi should be prosecuted. 2. Administrative sanctions be imposed on public officers whose acts facilitated the illegal operation of PFIPCs.
The Gambia's Electoral Commission pledges credible elections in December, despite several objections to the voter registration process.
What we are asking here is to have the raw data of the registration. We as a party have written to the IEC, and the question that they've already been provided to us before the deletions, after the deletions, who are deleted.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jibril Janko.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Newslink begins with a new diplomatic role between the Alliance of the Sahel States and the Nigerian government over remarks made by President Bola Tinubu, attributing the country's deteriorating security crisis to the Sahel. Tinubu's statement on July 30 while hosting traditional rulers at the presidential palace in Abuja has been met with strong rejections by members of the AES bloc. Burkina Faso, current chair of the bloc, represented by President of Burkinabe Foreign Minister Karamoko Jean-Marie Traoré, delivered the trio's position during a meeting with Nigeria's Charge Affairs. Abdullahi Hassan tells us more.
In a strongly worded statement on Friday, the three-member bloc said it deeply regrets the remarks insisting they overlook the immense sacrifices made by their troops and citizens in the fight against terrorism. The response came during a diplomatic meeting in Ouagadougou, where Burkina Faso's foreign minister raised the issue in the presence of Nigeria's charge to affairs alongside diplomats from Mali and Niger. Describing President Tinubu's comments as hasty, simplistic and surprising, the Burkinabe minister, Jean Karamoko Traoré, said they unfairly placed responsibility for a complex regional security crisis on neighboring states. He stressed that the AES countries have paid a heavy price in the war against armed groups and defended Niger's frontline role in battling Boko Haram, warning against narratives that undermine regional efforts. Despite the sharp criticism, the minister said the AES is not seeking a diplomatic showdown with Abuja, but is calling for a frank, respectful, and constructive dialogue. Responding, Nigeria's Charge to Affairs acknowledged the concerns, pledged to convey them to authorities in Abuja, and recognized the crucial role played by AES countries, particularly Niger, in preventing terrorist threats from spilling across the border into Nigeria.
Abdullah Hassan with that report. Just a week after the official inauguration of Benin's new Senate, the Upper Chamber of Parliament has elected former President Patrice Talon as its first president. The election has sparked mixed reactions across the civil society, with some welcoming Talon's political experience, while others are urging vigilance to ensure the Senate remains independent, transparent and accountable. Our correspondent in Cotonou, Aziz Adam Sule, reports on the expectations and concerns surrounding the new institutions. His report is voiced by Atiwin Mbela.
The appointment of former Beninese President Patrice Talon to head the country's newly established Senate is drawing mixed reactions from civil society, with many calling for the institution to prioritize transparency, dialogue and the public interest. Richard Oke of the Citizens Awareness Consortium says the Senate marks a new chapter in Benin's democracy journey and must work in the interest of all citizens.
One concern I have is that there isn't a legal expert in this leadership team. That's quite disappointing to me. this is an institution of such importance, one that is expected to examine the nation's laws and oversee the country's political life in the broader sense. The fact that there isn't even one legal specialist among the three leaders is something I find rather troubling.
While some welcome Talon's political experience as an asset for leading the new chamber, others argue that the real test will be the Senate's ability to remain independent and effectively serve as a counterweight within Benin's institutional framework. Joel Ataye Bedegbe is a civil society activist.
The law should not be treated as the property of a few. Although it applies to everyone, it is important that those entrusted with interpreting it do so as accurately as possible. That is what we should expect from the Senate's leadership. We should not expect confusion. There may, of course, be some overlap in roles and responsibilities, but the Senate must remain above all an institution of wisdom and political mediation.
Civil society groups say the Senate must now prove its relevance by strengthening good governance, consolidating democracy, and ensuring better representation of local authorities. They are also urging senators to stay connected to the concerns of ordinary citizens. Beyond the debate over Patrice Talon's election, many observers say the Senate will ultimately be judged not by who leads it, but by what it delivers.
A report by WDR's Aziz Adam Sule, voiced by Atiwin Mbela. In Burkina Faso, authorities are tightening oversight of the country's entertainment and cultural sector. 18 cultural and festive events have been suspended over concerns related to public morality, public order and the protection of minors. Officials say the move is part of a broader campaign to clean up the sector and enforce stricter standards. Augustine Colley reports.
The suspended events include the Outside in Lumbila, Golden Movement in Waga 2000, Urban Vibes in Bobo Jolaso, and the Waga Fiesta, as well as Waga Vibes. The Ministry of Communication, Culture, Arts and Tourism has ordered organizers to halt the events until further notice. Authorities warned that anyone who defies the directive could face administrative sanctions, including the withdrawal of event permits, fines, or even a ban from organizing artistic or cultural activities. The government says the decision is part of its campaign to promote civic responsibility and clean up the cultural sector. According to state officials, the decision is backed by the March 2025 Artist Status Law, which requires all artistic and cultural activities to comply with national laws on public order and public morality. The Burkina Information Agency said the crackdown also aims to promote the cultural values championed under the country's popular progressive revolution. In a related development, the ministry has instructed Burkinabe artist Kosapek to remove promotional content linked to his latest production, saying the material also violates public morality standards.
Augustine Colley reporting. Still in Burkina Faso, the transitional government says it plans to invest 117 billion CFA francs in the construction of a major memorial complex dedicated to former President Thomas Sankara. The construction is expected to begin in January 2027 in Ouagadougou. The project will feature a mausoleum, a monumental tower, and several cultural facilities. The announcement was made during the 10th annual commemoration ceremony honoring the late Burkinabe leader.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Today, Côte d'Ivoire celebrates its 66th independence anniversary. The military parade took place in Yopougon, Abidjan, and was attended by foreign heads of state, including Gabonese President Brice Oligui Nguema, while Guinea and India were invited countries. The president also pardoned 4,661 prisoners convicted of minor offenses. On the eve of these celebrations, President Alassane Ouattara addressed the nation, outlining his government's priorities on the economy, social development, and the country's political future. Here is Christopher Atiche with the details.
In a speech lasting several minutes, Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara praised Côte d'Ivoire's economic performance, saying the country's growth momentum would continue under the 2026-2030 National Development Plan. The president also identified the fight against illegal gold mining as a key government priority, noting that the illicit activities cost the state billions of CFA francs and lost revenue each year. On social issues, Ouattara expressed concern over the eviction of residents from the Kumasi Kompema neighborhood, assuring those affected that justice would be served. On the political front, however, he made only a brief announcement confirming that a new independent electoral commission would soon be established. While many had expected an announcement on political detainees held for several years, the president made no reference in their case. Instead, he granted presidential pardons to more than 4,000 people convicted of minor offenses.
Marcel Ariston Blay in Abidjan filed a report voiced by Christopher Aticho. In neighboring Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama has announced his first major ministerial reshuffle, naming a substantive defense minister more than a year after the death of Dr. Edward Omane Boma. The changes have also brought new faces to the environmental and local government ministries, while triggering rather questions over reasons behind some of the reassignments. Well, Elikblem Awuku in Accra joins us with an explainer.
The reshuffle sees former Majority Leader Mahama Yariga move from the Ministry of Local Government, Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, while Kole Klote MP Dr. Zenato Ajimang Rawlings takes over as Minister for Environment, Science and Technology, replacing the late Dr. Ibrahim Mutala Muhammad. Banda MP Ahmed Ibrahim also has been reassigned to the Ministry of Works, Housing and Water Resources. But it is the move of Kenneth Gilbert Ejay from Works and Housing to Defense that has attracted particular attention. The appointment has generated questions on social media, with some asking what informed the switch and what it means for the government's security priorities. Ejay, however, brings previous experience to the portfolio. He served as Deputy Defense Minister between 2015 and 2016 under President Mahama and holds a master's degree in peace, security and intelligence management from UPSA.
Elikblem Awoku in Accra. Now, Nigeria's anti-corruption agency, the Independent Corruption Practices and Other Related Offences, the Commission has recommended the prosecution of Adeniyi Adeyemi, the self-styled Director General of the controversial Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council. The recommendation on Thursday followed 4 weeks of investigations, which concluded the agency was fraudulently created. Presenting its interim report to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the ICPC said the Adeyemi was never appointed by the presidency, and the key documents used to establish the council, including the appointment letters and official records, were allegedly forged. The controversy first erupted in July, prompting President Tinubu to order an investigation into the council's legitimacy. Well, Musa Aliyu is ICPC chairman.
Some of the recommendations which we have submitted to Mr. President, one is that Mr. Adeyemi should be prosecuted. 2, administrative sanctions be imposed on public officers whose acts of omission and negligence facilitated the illegal operation of PFIPC/PEAC. Because our investigation found that some public officers, they failed to do due diligence and they failed to adhere with the standard procedures that are supposed to be complied in their ministries and departments. And that what gave Adeyemi the opportunity to conduct this illegal acts. Then institutional reform has also been recommended, that there is need for institutional reform so that the internal control of the MDAs can be strengthened to block this kind of illegal activity that happen.
Musa Aliyu, chairman of the Nigerian Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission. In the Gambia, more than 1,600 objections have been filed against entries on the provisional voter register ahead of the December 2026 presidential election. The objections have followed the publication of names added during the supplementary voter registration exercise amid concerns over multiple registrations and the accuracy of the list. The Independent Electoral Commission IEC says the cases will now go before revising courts, but the country's main opposition party is demanding greater access to voter data, saying transparency will be critical to public confidence in the electoral process. WDR's Rose Samari Cates in Banjul provides the details.
The complaints were filed after the IEC published the list of voters added during the April and May supplementary registration exercise. IEC chairperson Joseph Colley says revising court will now determine which entrances are maintained and removed.
The Chief Justice has appointed revising court magistrates to hear these cases at the various administrative areas, after which court sittings will commence. The provisional voter register generated during the supplementary voter registration in 2026 will then be added onto the 2021 voter register. This will be done once the revising courts conclude.
The IEC Deputy Chairperson Charna M. Jallas says concerns over changes to the register are not only linked to multiple registrations.
People registered multiple times, that's true. But the issue of edits, reprints, damage cards, if you do the addition, it would tally. And I can assure you, as Vice Chairman of this commission, that I would not be a party to anything that would impact on the integrity and credibility of the voter register.
Meanwhile, the main opposition, United Democratic Party, is demanding greater transparency over the review process. Dr. Lamin Mane is the Deputy Administrative Secretary of the UDP.
What we are asking here is to have the raw data of the registration. We as a party have written to the IEC and requested that the raw data provided to us before the divisions, after the divisions, who are deleted. Confidence and control are mutually exclusive. They can coexist. And this is what you're trying to do. You give us the data, and you give us the raw data, watch how you went about the speed deletions, and all that was deleted. And we do our own controls as well. If there are discrepancies, we sit again and talk about it.
The IEC says the final voter register will be produced after the revising courts complete their hearings ahead of the December elections. For WDR, Rose Samara Cates, Banjul.
You're listening to Newslink and West Africa Democracy Radio Broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at WADR.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. A yes bloc summons Nigeria's Charge Affairs over unfair remarks by President Tinubu linking worsening security crisis to the Sahel. President Mahama of Ghana carries out first cabinet reshuffle, appoints a defense minister. Nigeria's Anti-Corruption Commission recommends sanctions against Adeyemi for operating a fake government agency. The Gambia's Electoral Commission pledges credible elections in December, despite several objections to the voter registration process. So still ahead in the news, we have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Connecting Ghana to West Africa. This is Nadidi Tete in Accra, and you're listening to WADR 94.9 FM, Dakar.
In Guinea, 3 officials of Guinea's opposition Liberal Bloc Party in rural commune of Wende, Kenema, have been arrested and remanded in custody at the Gwekedu civil prison. They are accused of being behind a fire that destroyed the residence of the commune's mayor. The allegations have been rejected by the opposition party, which accuses the ruling GMD movement of carrying out a crackdown against its members. Details with Veronica Njai.
The dispute in the rural commune of Gwende, Kenema, between the opposition Liberal Bloc Party and the GMD movement, which forms part of the ruling majority, dates back to the campaign period for the legislative and local elections. Local officials of the Liberal Bloc were accused following a fire that destroyed the office of the newly elected mayor of the commune. 3 party members were subsequently arrested and brought before the prosecutor's office in Gwekedu. After questioning, they were remanded in custody and taken to the Gwekedu civil prison pending trial. Umar Sano, leader of the Liberal Bloc, has denounced what he describes as harassment, targeting his party officials in Gwekedu.
Why would we have any interest in setting the mayor's house on fire? Our members are responsible people. That is the daily work of the liberal bloc. We educate and raise awareness among our supporters. This is nothing but political persecution. We may be rivals at the ballot box, but we are not enemies. In any case, everyone involved is a citizen of Uwende Kenema. I see no justification for blaming our party officials every time an incident occurs in the commune.
The mayor of Gwende Kenema, whose office was destroyed in the fire, has not commented on any possible link between the incident and officials of the Liberal Bloc party in the area. The date for the trial of the 3 Liberal Bloc officials will be set in the coming days by the Gokeru Court of First Instance.
Channel Alpha Ibrahim Baldez report voiced by Vernick Njai. Liberian President Joseph Boakai has delivered one of his toughest warnings yet to drug traffickers, vowing a relentless crackdown on narcotics networks operating in the country. His remarks come amid the growing concern that Liberia is increasingly being used as a transit hub for cocaine and other illicit drugs following a series of major drug seizures and trafficking investigations. Boakai says his administration will pursue anyone involved in the illegal drug trade, regardless of their political position, wealth, or influence, stressing that no one is above the law. WDR's Abraham Parker in Monrovia tells us more.
Liberian President Joseph Boakai says individuals who use the country as a transit point for international drug trafficking will face the full weight of the law. Speaking Thursday during the commissioning of judges and the court martials in Monrovia, Boakai described narcotics trafficking as one of Liberia's biggest security threats, warning that the illegal trade fuels organized crime, undermines state institutions, and damages the country's global image.
And let me be clear and absolute. To those who seek to bring illegal drugs into Liberia to destroy the lives of our young people, let them hear me today. To those who believe Liberia can be used as a transit point for international narcotic trafficking, to those who believe that their positions, influence, wealth, we will identify you, we will pursue you, we will find you, and we will deal with you in accordance with the rule of law.
The president's warning comes as Liberia intensifies its fight against drug trafficking following a series of major arrests and seizures linked to suspected transnational criminal networks. Authorities, including the Liberia Drug Enforcement Agency, say criminal groups are exploiting the country's coastline, ports, and airport as routes for illicit narcotics. Several suspects have been arrested while investigations continue into Wadr trafficking operations. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this evening is Dr. Jonathan Asante Oshare, a political analyst and executive director of the African Institute of Strategic Studies in Ghana. In this interview, he provides analysis of Ghana's opposition New Patriotic Party's protest on Thursday. He also reveals reasons why opposition figures often use demonstrations to score political points ahead of the NPP's internal elections. Please listen.
The MPP has accused the government of suppressing dissenting voices and undermining democratic institutions. I think it is equally not supported by the fact. You need to look at issues from individual perspective, not in a cumulative fashion as they have tried doing, as it were, to obfuscate the whole, issues, in focus. I do not think that if somebody makes a pronouncement that we are going to kill the president and then chop off the head of his wife, how does this constitute free speech? And if you have a party that is in opposition, wishing to come back to power with all the baggage that you have in the past, I expected that they will have to behave responsibly. And whatever these state institutions are doing is not out of law.
The protest was held on a day marking a national tragedy and obviously attracted criticism. How do you assess the political implications of the timing?
Apparently, because it happened to be the 1-year anniversary of that tragedy that occurred, of some ministers and some, military men. They were aware that the president, together with other important government officials, were at UPSA, as it were, to commemorate this particular, tragic occasion. And so it was only Nana Jantwa who was available to receive that particular petition. It is even encouraging that today, democracy that is under attack, you are able to send your demonstration into the Jubilee House, the seat of government, of which you proscribed when your regime was in power as a security zone. I think that it was quite unfortunate that the demonstration had to coincide with this particular 1-year anniversary of memorial. And I think that it has virtually made the demonstration not to be that popular because people felt that the day that they chose for the demonstration was insensitive. I want to believe that probably they had already announced the date and they had forgotten.
So could this particular demonstration strengthen the NPP's position as a government watchdog?
The demonstration is merely a political, strategy. The timing was very wrong as to whether this will strengthen the NPP's position as a government watchdog. Well, I cannot hazard a guess on that. But so far, I don't think they have been very proactive in terms of proper constructive criticism of the government. It's as if they are in a hurry to criticize, and so they seem to be getting certain things wrong.
Looking ahead, what should be the next steps for government and the NPP after this demonstration?
As to the next steps for the government and then the NPP as a whole, I think that government will have cause to look into the petition, and if there is the need for any pronouncement to be made on that, they can equally go ahead. But I think that as Ghanaians, we need accountability. Anybody who has run the affairs of this country must account to the people. And so it is not a matter of witch hunt. It is a matter of being accountable and ensuring that corruption is nipped in the bud and ensuring that the country is not shortchanged in terms of her resources. For the NPP, I think that they will have to go back, and then re-strategize, because I don't think that the strategy or the strategies that they have been deploying lately have been working.
Dr. Jonathan Asante Oshoya, political analyst and an executive director of the African Institute of Strategic Studies in Ghana. Well, in sports, Spanish champions Barcelona have cancelled their pre-season friendly against Morocco's Etihad Riyad Tangier, citing current uncertainty surrounding the border crisis in Ceuta. Although the club did not give any specific reason, the decision is understood to be linked to the recent migrant influx into the Spanish enclave, which has heightened tensions across Europe. Barcelona will now continue their pre-season preparations with friendlies against Nottingham Forest before hosting Egypt's Al Ahly on 19 August ahead of their La Liga title of defense. And in athletics, African athletes impressed on day 2 of the World Athletics Under-20 Championship in Eugene, Oregon. The championship continues until August 9 at Harvard Field. And that's it for sports. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismail Kamara and Amadou Ju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. Well, coming up is a repeat broadcast of WADR's opinion poll, that is It's You Speaking. I am Sankula Jibril Janko. Good evening.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.